Comedian Tim Dillon is currently getting flack online after he announced a series of venues he would be performing at, and people realized many of these venues require proof of vaccination. Well, Tim Dillon has said that vaccine mandates are nonsensical. He's spoken out against them. And so many people are criticizing him, saying, then why would you perform at a venue that requires these things? It's not just Tim Dillon. Now, I will say, I don't know Tim Dillon. Never met him. Heard of him. He can do whatever he wants. But I will be critical of him if he's going to say vaccine mandates are bad and then be like, oh, no, I can't do anything about it because, they're mandating vaccines. You could choose not to play there, like Jim Brewer. Now, I get it. Jim Brewer's, no offense to Jim, but he was really big SNL in the 90s. I don't know if he has the same kind of draw or pull as someone like Tim Dillon might. I'm not going to sit here and play this game of like who's worth more. I can simply point out Jim Brewer is canceling events because they mandate the vaccine. Joe Rogan, not doing that either. And I think Joe needs to be criticized very heavily for this, as do many other people. I'm not okay with it. I'm absolutely not okay with listening to people come out and say vaccine mandates are wrong. You shouldn't force this. You shouldn't be segregating people. You shouldn't be discriminating against people. It's a private medical decision. And then go, well, for me, I'm going to actually, patronize these establishments and make them lots of money. No, I'm not playing that game. We saw it yesterday. I want you to look at this photo. COVID rules are for serfs, not celebrities. The Met Gala yesterday, we saw Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in her tax the rich dress. All of these celebrities and political elites wearing their ridiculous Hunger Games outfits like the Capitol, while the people working the event wear masks. I despise these people. I despise them more than anything. I always have. And they say I'm not on the left. I have always been disgusted by this image right here. These people, their ridiculous outfits, their flaunting of wealth and power, while they tell the workers they're subject to special rules. No, that is not America. America is the country where a farmer could walk up to the president and give him the middle finger. Okay, I mean that figuratively, there's Secret Service, but to a certain degree, you can do it. You can go to campaign events. You get in, there's security because we want to keep people safe. But you can say, F you, who are you to talk to me like that? You ain't nobody. Joe Biden wants to come out and say, our patience is wearing thin. I don't give a damn about your patience. We do not live in a despotic, authoritarian regime, although it's certainly turning into that. And now, I will say, this photo I see, Ella Emhoff, stepdaughter of the vice president, and actress Julia Garner pose on the Met Gala in front of a coterie of masked staffers. That was the image we saw all with the Met Gala, and it makes me barf in my mouth a little bit. It's disgusting. But you know what? You want to live in the Capitol? You want to live like that? You want to be a serf suckling on the toes of the establishment political elites who know that they're better than you? Then go ahead and do it. You want to watch the Young Turks so you can listen to Anna say, I'm better than you and I know it. Go ahead and do it. But you know what? Don't expect me to stand by when those claiming to oppose this support these systems. Now, Joe Rogan, in this story from Local 12, August 29th, says that he'll refund fans who don't want him to get vaccinated. Let me just point out, I don't know AOC. I'm not a big fan of AOC. I try to give her credit sometimes when she says or does good things because I don't want to always be negative. I want to make sure we can highlight some good things. But I very much disagree with her and what she does. I view her as controlled opposition. She is just an establishment shill. Joe Rogan's pretty good and one of the most important figures in terms of cultural politics, speaking out and standing up for what he believes in, defending the little guy very often. But in this regard, we can see something rather interesting. Joe can come out all day and night talking about how vaccine mandates are wrong, but when push comes to shove, he will walk right into the venue that's mandating it and say, well, just give the money back to the people who can't get vaccinated. I don't care what your excuse is going to be for the people you like. I know Joe, consider him a friend. I'm going to criticize him. This is wrong. Joe should cancel the event. He's already sold 13,000 tickets at a minimum. I think the lowest price is $40. It goes up to like $55. A lot of money to walk away from, I guess. But I just don't understand. I just really, really don't get it. How much money is enough? I don't get it. I don't know why Joe would do the event. He's already world famous with the biggest podcast in the world. He can't get more famous. He's already gotten his deal from Spotify, which is like $100 million. What are you even going to do with all this? I don't understand. At a certain point, it's called FU money. Now, look, I'm not Joe. He can do what he wants. He can be happy about my critique, or he can, he can ignore it, or he can criticize me, or he can tell me to shove off and F you. He can do whatever he wants. He's his own guy. Tim Dillon, same thing. But don't think I'll sit back while people claim that they're opposed to these mandates and then support these things. You think I'm going to go perform in New York City? Never going to happen. I will not be the cog in the machine of the despots. Now, there's a big difference between saying at public institutions, we want vaccines, particularly like MMR stuff, measles, mumps, rubella, and polio and things like that. I am a big fan of all these vaccines. I'm absolutely 100% on board. In fact, mRNA technology, the new vaccines, the COVID vaccines, it's amazing. Now, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, seriously, look at what they do with this. I remember watching this video about new ways to defeat viruses if antibiotics stop working. And there's there's receptor blocking technology where they can send in proteins that block the receptors on bacteria so that it can't reproduce. And then it's like a different way of destroying because they eventually just die out. It's really clever stuff. mRNA, apparently they take like a piece of messenger RNA code, put it into a lipid, which transports it to a cell, programming the cell to take a certain action. And then your body can do something about it. In this instance, produce spike proteins, your body then destroys them, and that's supposed to provide the protection for the COVID virus because SARS-CoV-2 has spike proteins on it. Now, there's other things they can do with mRNA, maybe even cure cancer. Amazing. Okay, well, hopefully we get to that point because if someone comes to me right now and says their doctor recommended against it for whatever reason, who am I to tell them they're wrong? Howard Stern criticized Joe Rogan's doctor for prescribing him off-label use medications. Who the are you, Howard Stern, to question a doctor? You're some dumb guy on the radio who says stupid things. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a doctor either. I defer to the doctors. Joe Rogan's got a doctor who says it. I say, well, what am I supposed to say? I'll tell you my opinions. I think the vaccines are great, but I think it's up to you. Now, if somebody comes out and says there's not enough information on the risk to pregnancies, which is in the Pfizer FDA insert, I say, then sounds like you got to make a personal choice. Joe Rogan is basically saying that anybody who feels this way or is concerned about this, you get your money back, but you're not allowed to see him perform in New York City. Now, I'm not blaming him for New York banning people. I'm saying, why would you provide the incentive to pressure people to do this? Refunding people is the least you could do, I suppose. I can respect that to a certain extent. But the only reason the vaccine mandates work in New York City is because every single mom and pop shop is saying, I'm just following orders. So let me tell you something. New York City, New York State, and federal law prohibit discrimination on the basis of medical disability. And there are some people who can't get vaccinated. Now, the left will say there's no medical reason. There's a whole CDC list of medical reasons you can't get vaccinated, particularly specific allergies, like glycol, for instance. So these businesses have chosen which law they want to violate. I'm sorry, the decree isn't a law. Now, I'm not happy to see that Joe or Tim Dillon or anybody is going to say, don't blame me, blame the government, but I'll just be the incentive, the machine providing the opportunity for these establishments to be empowered. If Joe Rogan came out right now and said, I will not perform at Madison Square Garden because of the vaccine mandate, if you are one of the 13,000 people who paid for this ticket, you will get a refund. And by all means, please send a complaint to the city and the venue, because maybe when you have that much influence and you tell people to speak up, you can make a difference. And this is what I don't understand. I don't know Joe's circumstance. I don't know why he needs the money or needs to perform. Maybe he does. It's his choice, not mine. I will tell you this. I don't understand at all at what point the money is worth it. Sorry, I don't. Timcast.com is doing extremely well. There are these leftists who try to claim that I'm poor or whatever. I haven't been poor since I worked for Disney. Okay. Disney paid me a ridiculous amount of money. They cut me a check for $200,000 on the spot after talking to me for 10 minutes. Yeah. Not poverty. And at a certain point you get this money and you're like, I have space. I have my own skate park. I've got a Tesla. And we're building a company and hiring journalists. I'm not saying this to brag about things that I have or my success. I'm saying it to point out at a certain point, I don't even know what to do with money other than give it away, which I do a lot of, to be completely honest. Mostly I'm trying to hire people and make sure we can build awesome stuff and stand up for what we believe in. That's just me. Maybe that's who I am. That's why we're setting up timcast.com. That's why we're hiring more journalists. That's why we're starting a nonprofit. We've already filed the paperwork for a fact-checking organization so that we can hire people to start fact-checking the news and doing something that will have an impact. Because at the end of the day, I just don't get it. How much money is enough for any of these people? For Bezos, for Zuckerberg, for Joe, for Tim Dillon. I'm not going to sit here and pretend Tim Dillon is a multimillionaire like Joe Rogan. That I get. And Joe is offering a refund. Let me read this real quick, and then I'll show you the Tim Dillon stuff. Rogan says he will offer refunds to any of his fans who don't want to get a COVID-19 vaccine but already purchased tickets to his show at Madison Square Garden prior to the mandate. Rogan said in his podcast last week, this is reported on the 29th, after de Blasio's mandate, that he had already sold 13,000 tickets to his show, but he opposes vaccine requirements. The comedian decided to offer refunds as a solution. If someone has an ideological or physiological reason for not getting vaccinated, I don't want to force them to get vaccinated to see an effing stupid comedy show, Rogan said. And now they say that everybody has to be vaccinated, and I want everybody to know that you can get your money back. Rogan has insisted that he's not against the COVID-19 vaccine, but he's against vaccine mandates and passports. All right, I'll cut Joe some slack. He likely has a very strict and serious contract. And even if he is particularly wealthy, he could be on the hook for maybe even tens of millions of dollars if he breaks that contract. So maybe he is not able to actually pull out. I want to make sure I'm being fair. I know Joe. I trust Joe. I think he's a good dude. And I don't think that he would. I think he's strategic and I think he is principled. It still is a damn shame to see this happening. I don't know what he could do. Maybe he could come out and tell everybody to complain about it and protest or something, or even demand a refund. Maybe if he wasn't able to actually cancel, he could say, I'll still perform because of contractual obligations, but I encourage everybody to not come to the show. That could potentially be a breach of contract as well. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know his private circumstances. Now, as for Tim Dillon, this is something different. Tim is not playing at, as far as I know, Madison Square Garden, which is probably like, Madison Square Garden probably has a hefty, thick contract his lawyers went through. It was probably planned well in advance. Still, regardless of those details, I got to be critical of Joe moving forward with this. It is what it is. Tim Dillon said, a quick note on the vaccine stuff for my more brain-dead fans. I am not requiring anything. Venues, promoters, and state and local governments are requiring it. To attend shows in New York and LA, many other states, you need to show vax proof. If you don't want to go, listen to the podcast for free. That's right. I oppose it, but anybody who is unable or unwilling or concerned about the risks, you're not welcome to come to my shows. Don't blame me. I'm just propping up the system. That's the issue I have with Joe and Tim right now. The critique I have for both of them. I don't hate Tim Dillon. I actually respect him calling out a lot of the woke garbage. I have tremendous respect for Joe Rogan. He's a very important figure calling out authoritarianism and woke garbage. But the system can only exist so long as you are willing to support it. Every single mom and pop restaurant in New York City that says we will uphold the mandate in violation of the ADA they are the ones who are making it happen, because there is no Gestapo in New York mandating this stuff. If y'all said no, it would be over. But you know what? People just don't want to stand up against this. Tim Dillon says, I have already stated my issue with government mandates being nonsensical. However, I am not the governor of New York. So how about you don't perform in New York and you go somewhere else? I mean, New York City has the mandate. Perhaps you could find a suburban venue outside of New York City, not even that far away, that can accommodate your show and wouldn't require proof of vaccination. So what's the issue? I don't want to cut Joe slack simply because I know him. Madison Square Garden is a particularly specific venue. Again, contractual issues. So benefit of the doubt in that regard. Tim Dillon, I think, has more of an opportunity to say no to this and go somewhere else. In fact, that's not even a point that I've come up with. One of his fans actually said you can go to the suburbs where they don't mandate vaccines, but you chose not to. Joe Rogan doesn't need to be performing at these venues. We'll see what Joe does after Madison Square Garden. Someone said, boycotting venues and states that require that garbage would send a big message and promote venues that aren't segregationists, though. And Tim said, should I also boycott Texas because they banned abortion, which I don't agree with? You know what? Seeing that was when I was like, okay, I get it. Tim wants money. He wants to perform. He wants to make money. I get it. You know, it's easy for me to say when I'm like, look how rich I am or whatever. I don't have to worry about canceling a show. I don't have to worry about, necessarily quitting my job. I have an income stream that's insulated from all of this. But I will tell you this right now. Don't play with me. I tried breaking my contract at Fusion, the company that was paying me a ridiculous sum of money because I did not agree with what they were doing to news media. And they wouldn't let me. And that's why I can say, I get it. Joe might have a contract. I tried to quit. They wouldn't let me. When the contract ended, I was out. I was not happy with that arrangement. And it may be true for Joe, but Tim is the one booking these shows now after the fact. So I hope Joe in the future doesn't book any more of this trash. And I hope Tim Dillon chooses to do the right thing as well. Now, look, if you're in favor of the vax mandates, go do your vax mandate show, I guess. Tim Dillon's getting absolutely ratioed on all this stuff, though. Let me just state for the Texas abortion thing. Let me just put this out there. If you disagree with Texas abortion law, yeah, you maybe shouldn't go there. However, the venue isn't an abortion clinic. So if you were performing in an abortion clinic and you were requiring people to be denied an abortion, I might understand like, okay, but it doesn't really apply here. It makes no sense. The venue might tell you straight to your face, we oppose the abortion bill that passed. We're a music venue, a performance venue. We don't have anything to do with performing abortions. So your fans are fine. Okay, great. They can walk in without worry about anything. In New York, your fans can only get in if they abide by a rule you publicly oppose. Imagine being like, it's just really, really simple math. I am hereby against X. Now, I will be going to a venue that requires X, so all of you who are opposed to it like I am, too bad. What? Yeah, I have a problem with this. You can't come out and say that I think grilled cheese should be illegal. Tomorrow I'll be performing at a grilled cheese venue that requires you purchase a grilled cheese in order to watch the show, but I oppose it. No, sorry, I'm not going to sit here and just say you're free to do, you're going to be free from criticism. Look at this right here. Jim Brewer, goat boy. Bravo, good sir. Trending in the United States. Why? Because he said no. Like a man. Comedian and SNL alum Jim Brewer cancels shows at venues requiring COVID vaccination. The former SNL cast member said the cancellations were due to the segregation of them forcing people to show up with vaccinations. Now, there you go. The immediate response from people is, oh, but come on, who's Jim Brewer? Whatever will we do without Jim Brewer? Jim Brewer may not be as famous or have the same draw as he did in the past. I honestly don't know. Maybe he does. He was really big in the 90s. Maybe he's got a good boomer and Gen X demographic. Tim Dillon's a younger guy, skews younger audience. Joe Rogan's got a massive audience. Quote, 2 quick updates on shows that you may think you may be getting tickets to or you already have tickets to. The Wellmont Theater in New Jersey, not doing it. Also, the Royal Oak Theater in Michigan, due to the segregation of them forcing people to show up for the vaccination with the vaccinations, I am also not doing the shows. I am not going to I know I'm going to sacrifice. Sorry. He says, quote, I know I'm going to sacrifice a lot of money, but I'm not going to be enslaved to the system or money. Jim Brewer, can we book you for our event? I'd love to have you, man. Brewer said getting vaccinated was a choice, and he didn't care what his fans might have to say about his decision to cancel his shows. He said patrons were being forced and bribed before they could attend his shows. If you have anything else to say, I honestly don't care, Brewer said. Due to, I have to stick to my morals. I have to stick to what I know is right. Brewer said in some cases he doesn't blame venues for enforcing vaccine mandates, but rather governors and ticketing vendors. He said the venues were being held hostage. Neither venues responded to requests for comment. Comedian Patton Oswalt recently canceled his upcoming tour dates in Florida and Salt Lake City because the venues would not comply with his request that attendees either show proof of full vaccination or a negative COVID test. You see how the game is played? Patton Oswalt will demand a venue that doesn't do it, or he'll cancel. Tim Dillon won't. So long as the left is willing to stand by their morals and their convictions, they will win every single time. But not even Joe Rogan would cancel this event. That's the best we have to offer. The people who believe in liberty and freedom and individual choice will always back down, won't they? Or maybe they never really believed it in the first place. And maybe it was true what the left said, that many of these people are just grifters. You know what, man? Try me. We're going to put on a venue in a month or so. We're planning it. We're going to have a comedian. I'm going to try and see if Jim Brewer would want to perform that. I don't know if I can get him. We'll see what we can do. You come to me and you play games, and I will stand by my convictions every single time. When the Antifa guy in Boston gets in my face and started swinging at me, I didn't flinch. I clenched my jaw and tightened my abs, and I said, try me. If push came to shove, and it came down to it, and all of y'all just gave in, I would take my van down by the river and say, then I guess I'm it. I am legend. I am the creature who lurks in the night. I don't fit in because, I remember that great quote from Captain America, because when everyone tells you you're wrong, it is your job to and you're wrong and to move. It's your job to plant yourself like a tree and say, no, you move. But we don't have that. Patton Oswalt, celebrity comedian, would try and tell venues to comply with mandatory vaccination. And when they said no, he says, canceled. Tim Dillon says, I'm sorry, guys, they're the ones who are doing it. And he's booking these now. Joe Rogan would say, well, I'll give you a refund. It's the best we have to offer, isn't it? Imagine there is a game of tug of war going on. And on the left, they are pulling with all their might. And on the right, they're just trying to stay where they are, not trying to pull the rope and win, just trying not to move. Who do you think wins in that scenario? I can't speak for anybody else. Let me just put it this way. Tim can do whatever he wants. And if you like him and you're fans, then call me an idiot in the comments below and say whatever you want to say about me. And if you're a fan of Joe Rogan and you want to apologize and defend their positions on all this stuff, by all means. I think it's fair to point out contractual obligations, but if Patton Oswalt is willing to cancel his events at venues, why can't anybody who supposedly believes in freedom and opposes the vaccine mandates, why can't they do it? And this is why you see the right getting censored left and right. It's why the Republicans are a speed bump for Democrats, and it's why we consistently get pulled into the authoritarian left, because we don't got anybody who's willing to stand up, plant themselves like a tree and say, no, you move. Peaceful, persuasive, resourceful, as I often say. But if we can't even get comedians to cancel a show, I don't know what to tell you. But I will say a couple of things. I don't know Tim Dillon's financial circumstances. I'd imagine he's probably well off. If he's a successful comedian and podcaster, he probably makes a decent amount of money. He's not poor by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if he's a millionaire or ultra wealthy. But let me just say something else. Speak candidly. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to brag about the success of timcast.com. We have about 30 employees already. We are working on a ton of projects. We just did some live reads for a new show. These things take time, and we're a small company trying to grow rapidly. Our revenue stream is fantastic, mostly thanks to all of you awesome people who are members who support our work. Now, throughout the work that I've done in media, I have come to be particularly wealthy, and there's no other real way to say it. But I can tell you this. There comes a point where I look at my bank account and I look at my assets and I look at my portfolio and everything, and I'm just like, I don't even know what to do with this. And that's why we're hiring as fast as we can. And you can only hire so fast. You can't just hire someone and say, here's a pen and paper, do work. We have to know that people have the ability, they have the talent. It takes time to grow and develop. So I'm like, I would love to just take all the money and just boom, hire all these people, but we can't. But that's the goal. I've got a nice car. We've got some fun stuff for the vlog. We've got a big production facility. We've got skate parks here. Yes, we've spent money making this place fun and exciting because we want to build culture and inspire people. As for the money that comes in, I'm trying to figure out What do you even do with it other than help people, give a lot of it away? I tell you this, I keep my giving private, but I give away a substantial amount of money. I really, really do. Not because I'm trying to be wasteful or anything, but I've saved pets. I've saved people. I've given to specific charitable events. I've funded projects. And if I had the ability to put all that money into more stuff under the timcast.com umbrella faster, I'd definitely do it. But let me just explain. At a certain point, you might think it's crazy that someone would give away $1,000 or large sums of money. But at a certain point, it's like you need to understand there is a certain level of wealth where it is just insanity. And I'll put it this way. After a decade in the industry and the things I have seen and worked for, having the amount of money that I've made in the business and the success that it has, I genuinely don't know what I would personally want other than to make a great company and grow the company and hire more journalists, which we're doing we're going through resumes almost every single day. I look to Joe Rogan, who's got a $100 million deal with Spotify, which is probably paid out in not immediately, but in increments over the span of a few years. I don't know his deal. But if that were the case, if it was like $100 million over 2 years, then he's looking at $50 million a year, which means he's looking at, just a couple $1,000,000 per month. What do you do with that money? At a certain point, you have FU money, and you can be like Notch, where he just smack talks and says, I literally don't care. I'll say what I want. I'm rich. That's great. Notch is a good dude. I don't know what he's been on, doing lately, but again, I'm not trying to brag or act like, I'm better than anybody or anything like that. I'm just saying, this is why I'm on the left when it comes to financial issues. I look at these people in West Virginia and I see the way they live, and I'm just like, I genuinely do not understand how somebody could have even $10 million, even $10 million. Okay, I'm not talking about Joe and his, however much he's making from his podcast and from all of the work he's doing. He's making probably millions. He's making millions per month, millions. And I'm like, what do you do with it? No joke. What do you do with it? You want to come to me and say, buy houses, right? It's not easy. It's insane. What do you do when you have the house? Who maintains it? Who watches it? Who handles your taxes and your accounting? Mo money, mo problems. No joke. At a certain point, I'm like, I'd rather just buy someone else a house. I'm happy. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'd love to be able to do more. But at a certain point, I just don't get it. Why wouldn't you just be like, wow, I make $200K a year. I don't need to do a show at a venue where I'd sacrifice my principles for this. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Glenn Beck flew himself to the Middle East to save lives. That dude's got FU money up the wazoo. And you see what he does with it? Tremendous respect. I don't know, man. I just don't know. I'm going to say it one more time. There comes a point where you have so much money, you literally are just sitting there confused as to what you even do with it. And I'll tell you this right now. I could stop working. I could have stopped working last year. Never have to work again. Work is not about money. It's never been for me. It's about doing something I believe in. And it's not just YouTube. It's not just timcast.com. I even have other businesses that make money. And I don't have to work. But I want to do something good and build something good. And so when I see these people who are like just ridiculous amounts of money, and I'm like, why won't you stand up for something? What do you want the money for? That's just me. I guess some people want the infinity pool. They want to live in a luxury DC condo, being a congressperson, wearing snooty dresses to a $30,000 event, whatever. I'm done. Rant over. You get the point. I'll see y'all at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out.